Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of Earth Defense Station Valor, staring at the massive alien ships floating above every major city on the planet. 3 months had passed since they first appeared, and still his hands shook when he looked at them. The ships were huge, each one the size of a mountain, black as space itself with strange purple lights running along their sides. "Sir, we're getting another transmission from the lead ship," said Lisa Bennett from her communications station. Her voice was steady, but Jake could see the fear in her eyes. Everyone was scared. How could they not be? "Put it through, Jake," replied, straightening his uniform. He was the captain of humanity's most advanced space station, but he felt like a child with a toy gun facing a real army. The alien voice filled the bridge, speaking directly into their minds through some kind of technology humans didn't understand. The voice was cold and commanding, like metal scraping against stone. "People of Earth, I am Overlord Zenth of the Korathian Empire, speaking for the hegemony. Your time of independence is over. You will surrender all weapons. You will dismiss your governments. You will accept your place as servants of the hegemony. You have 72 hours to comply." Jake felt his crew tense around him. Ryan Walsh, his tactical officer, clenched his fists. Sam Rodriguez, the chief engineer, muttered something in Spanish under his breath. They all knew what this meant. "Submit or die." The transmission continued. "Other species have tried to resist us. All have failed. Your weapons cannot harm our ships. Your technology is primitive. Submit now, and your people will be allowed to live as workers in our empire. Refuse, and we will destroy every human being in existence." The voice cut off, leaving the bridge in silence. Jake looked around at his crew. These were good people, brave people who had volunteered to defend Earth, even knowing they would probably die trying. "Captain," Lisa said quietly, "we're receiving similar messages from stations all over the solar system. The aliens are broadcasting to everyone. Down on Earth, world leaders were meeting in emergency sessions. President Helen Carter had called together every nation's representatives. The message was the same everywhere: surrender or face total destruction. Jake activated his communication system to contact Earth Defense Command. Admiral Paul Johnson's weathered face appeared on the screen. The old man looked tired, like he had aged 10 years in the past 3 months. "Admiral, what are our orders?" Jake asked. Johnson was quiet for a moment. "Jake, I've been in the military for 40 years. I've seen wars, I've seen terrible things, but I've never seen anything like this." He paused, looking at something off-screen. "Every world leader is asking the same question. Do we fight and die, or do we surrender and live as slaves?" "What do you think we should do, sir?" "I think about my grandchildren," Johnson said slowly. "What kind of world would they grow up in under alien rule? What kind of life would that be?" Meanwhile, in a laboratory in Geneva, Dr. Alex Turner was studying recordings of the alien transmissions. He had been Earth's top expert on the possibility of alien life, though he never imagined first contact would be like this. The aliens spoke with such confidence, such certainty that humans would surrender. "Computer, play back the behavioral analysis of the alien commander," Alex said to his AI assistant. The screen showed recordings of Overlord Zenth during his broadcasts. Alex watched carefully, noting the alien's posture, the way he spoke, the assumption in his voice that humans would simply give up. "Interesting," Alex muttered. "He's not angry or cruel. He seems genuinely puzzled that we haven't surrendered already." His assistant, Dr. Rachel Kim, looked up from her own research. "What do you mean?" "Look at this," Alex pointed to the screen. When he talks about other species resisting, there's confusion in his voice. Like he can't understand why anyone would choose to fight when the outcome seems obvious. Rachel frowned. "Maybe that's just how they think. They're so powerful they can't imagine anyone being stupid enough to resist." "Maybe," Alex said, but something bothered him about that explanation. He had studied animal behavior for years, and there was something odd about how these aliens acted. They seemed to expect immediate submission, like it was the natural response to their presence. Back on the Valor, Jake received a priority message from Earth. It was President Carter, addressing all military commanders simultaneously. My fellow humans, the president began, we face the greatest challenge in our species' history. The aliens have given us a choice: surrender our freedom or face extinction. Jake watched as his crew gathered around the communication screen. Across the solar system, he knew thousands of other military personnel were listening to the same message. I have consulted with world leaders, military commanders, and scientists. We have debated and argued and prayed. And we have reached a decision. The president's voice grew stronger. Humanity will not surrender. We will not become slaves. If we must die, we will die as free people, fighting for our right to exist as we choose. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Around him, his crew straightened up. Ryan Walsh smiled grimly. Lisa Bennett nodded with determination. Sam Rodriguez cracked his knuckles and said, "Well, Captain, looks like we're going to war." President Carter has declared that in 18 hours, when their deadline passes, Earth will officially be at war with the hegemony, Jake announced to his crew. We all knew this day might come. We all volunteered knowing we might have to give our lives to defend our world. He looked each of them in the eye. I won't lie to you. We're going to lose. Their ships are bigger, their weapons are stronger, their technology is far beyond ours. But we're going to fight anyway, because that's what humans do. We don't give up. We don't bow down. We fight. As the hours ticked by toward the deadline, similar scenes played out across human space. Fighter pilots prepared their ships. Ground forces took defensive positions. Scientists worked frantically to find any weakness in alien technology. And in his flagship above Earth, Overlord Zenth waited for humanity's surrender, still puzzled by their delay in submitting to superior force. In his experience, all species eventually chose survival over pride. Humans would be no different. He had no idea how wrong he was. The deadline came and went like a thunderclap across the galaxy. At exactly 12 o'clock GMT, every human military installation, every government building, every resistance cell on Earth and beyond sent the same message to the hegemony fleet: we refuse to surrender. We choose to fight. Overlord Zenth stood in his command chamber aboard the flagship, staring at the flood of rejection messages pouring in from the human world. His forearms twitched with confusion as his subordinates reported the same thing from every corner of human space. This is impossible, he said to his second-in-command, a tall insect-like creature called Vex. No species chooses extinction over servitude. Check the translations again. The translations are correct, Overlord, Vex replied, his compound eyes reflecting the battle displays. The humans are refusing to submit, all of them. Zenth had conquered 47 worlds in his lifetime. Every single one had surrendered when faced with hegemony power. Some fought briefly, but when they saw the hopelessness of their situation, they always chose to live as servants rather than die as free beings. It was the logical choice. It was the only choice any intelligent species ever made, but not humans. Lieutenant Commander Kate Phillips sat in the cockpit of her fighter, leading Squadron 7 off the carrier USS Liberty. Her helmet radio crackled with chatter from her pilots as they formed up for their attack run on the nearest hegemony vessel. Phoenix Leader, this is Phoenix 3, came the voice of Danny Brooks, a young pilot who had graduated from flight. School just 6 months ago. My targeting computer can't even get a lock on that thing. It's like trying to bite a mountain. Stay focused, Danny, Kate replied. We're not trying to destroy it in one pass. We're trying to hurt it, slow it down. Make them notice us. Phoenix Leader, this is Phoenix 5, called Maria Santos, a veteran pilot with 10 years of experience. I'm reading massive energy buildup from their forward weapons. They're charging up to fire. Kate watched her tactical display as the alien ship prepared to attack. The hegemony vessel was easily 50 times larger than her entire squadron combined, but she felt no fear, only determination. All Phoenix fighters, this is Phoenix Leader. Remember your training. We're fast, we're smart, and we're fighting for our home. Hit them hard and get out. For Earth, for Earth. Came the response from all 12 pilots in her squadron. The battle began with devastating fury. Hegemony ships opened fire with weapons that turned space itself into fire. Human orbital platforms vanished in seconds, reduced to glowing debris. Military bases on Earth's surface were hit by beams of energy that left nothing but glass craters where buildings used to stand, but humanity kept fighting. Kate's squadron dove at the alien ship, their missiles seeming tiny against its massive bulk. Most of the weapons bounced harmlessly off alien shields, but a few got through, leaving small scorch marks on the dark hull. "Direct hit on their sensor array," Danny shouted over the radio. "I got through their shields." "Good work, Phoenix." "3," Kate replied, dodging a burst of alien fire. "All units, target their sensor clusters. If we can blind them, maybe we can—" Her words were cut off as Phoenix 4 disappeared in a ball of fire. Then Phoenix 9, then Phoenix 11. One by one, her squadron was being picked off by enemy fire. "Phoenix leader, we need to retreat." Maria called out, "We're getting slaughtered up here." Kate looked at her tactical display. Half her squadron was gone, and they had barely scratched the alien ship. Any sane military commander would order a retreat, but something deep inside her refused to give up. "Negative, Phoenix 5, we keep fighting until we can't fight anymore." Down on Earth, Colonel Nick Stone crouched in the ruins of what used to be downtown Chicago. Alien landing craft had deposited thousands of troops throughout the city, tall, gray creatures in powered armor who moved with mechanical precision. "Sir, they're setting up some kind of broadcast equipment in the town square," reported Lieutenant Ashley Parker, crawling up beside him through the rubble. "Looks like they want to make an announcement." Nick watched through his binoculars as the alien soldiers worked. They moved like they were following a very specific plan, setting up their equipment in an exact pattern. Everything they did seemed designed to project authority and control. "They're trying to establish dominance," Nick muttered. "Look at how they're positioning themselves. It's all about showing power." The alien broadcast equipment activated, and a voice boomed across the ruined city in perfect English. "Citizens of Chicago, your military has been defeated. Your government has abandoned you. Report to collection points for processing and assignment to work duties. Resistance is futile." Nick expected to see people emerging from the ruins, ready to surrender. Instead, he watched as civilians picked up rocks, bottles, anything they could find, and began throwing them at the alien soldiers. An old man in his 70s hobbled out of a collapsed building and shouted at the nearest alien, "Trooper, go to hell, you ugly bug. This is America." The alien soldier seemed confused by this response. It aimed its weapon at the old man, clearly expecting him to run or beg for mercy. Instead, the man just stood there, glaring. "I said go to hell?" the old man repeated. The alien hesitated. In Nick's experience, that was unusual. Military forces trained to control populations didn't usually hesitate when dealing with resistance. "Ashley," Nick whispered, "are you seeing this?" "Look at how they're reacting to defiance," Ashley nodded. "It's like they don't know what to do when people refuse to be scared." Similar scenes played out across the globe. In London, civilians formed human chains to block alien vehicles. In Tokyo, office workers threw furniture from windows at alien aircraft. In Cairo, children sang songs of resistance while alien soldiers stood around looking uncertain. Dr. Alex Turner watched these events unfold from his laboratory, now hidden in an underground bunker outside Geneva. His computers were analyzing thousands of hours of footage showing human-alien interactions. "Computer, analyze behavioral patterns of hegemony troops when faced with human resistance," he commanded. The results were fascinating. Every time humans refused to submit, alien forces showed signs of confusion and hesitation. When humans obeyed orders, the aliens moved efficiently. When humans resisted, they seemed lost. "Rachel, come look at this," Alex called to his assistant. "I think I'm seeing a pattern." Dr. Rachel Kim joined him at the display. "What am I looking at?" "Watch this footage from Berlin. See how the alien commander reacts when that group of protesters refuses to disperse?" Alex pointed at the screen. "He gives the order 3 times, and when they still don't move, he just ... stops, like his programming broke." Rachel studied the data. You think they're programmed? Not programmed exactly, but conditioned somehow. Look at this statistical analysis. Every other species they've conquered showed immediate submission responses when faced with superior force, but humans keep fighting even when it's hopeless. Alex pulled up more data on his screen. I've been studying their historical records, the ones we captured from that crashed scout ship last month. Every species in their empire followed the same pattern: initial resistance, recognition of superior force, immediate surrender. But not us, Rachel said quietly. Not us, Alex agreed. And I don't think they know how to handle that. Their entire system seems built around the assumption that intelligent life will choose survival over freedom when faced with overwhelming odds. The realization hit him like lightning. Rachel, what if we're the first species they've met that never learned to give up? What if that's our advantage? Outside the bunker, the war raged on. Human forces were losing every major battle. Their cities were in ruins and their casualties mounted by the hour. But still they fought. Still they refused to surrender, and in the depths of space, Overlord Zenth stared at his battle reports with growing confusion. By all logical calculations, the humans should have surrendered by now. Their resistance made no tactical sense. He had no idea that humanity's greatest strength was their complete inability to accept defeat. 3 weeks had passed since the war began, and Earth was losing badly. Half of humanity's major cities lay in ruins, and millions of people had died in the fighting. But still, no human government had surrendered. No human military unit had laid down their weapons. This fact puzzled Overlord Zenth more than any battlefield defeat. Dr. Alex Turner worked frantically in his underground laboratory, surrounded by captured alien equipment and 3 hegemony prisoners. The prisoners sat quietly in energy field cages, watching him with large, dark eyes that seemed strangely empty. "Computer, begin interrogation protocol 7, Alex said, approaching the nearest prisoner, a tall gray creature with 6 arms. "State your name and rank," Alex commanded. "I am Soldier Unit 477 of the Hegemony Defense Corps," the alien replied in a flat, emotionless voice. "Why do you serve the Hegemony?" "We must obey," the creature answered without hesitation. Alex frowned. This was the same answer all 3 prisoners gave to every question about motivation. He tried a different approach. "What would happen if you refused to obey orders?" The alien's face went blank, like the question had broken something in its mind. It stared at Alex for several seconds before responding. "Refusal is not possible. We must obey. But what if you tried? What if you decided not to follow orders?" Again, the long pause. The alien's head twitched slightly. I do not understand the question." "We must obey." Dr. Rachel Kim, who had been monitoring the aliens' brain activity, looked up from her scanner with excitement. "Alex, you need to see this. When you ask about disobedience, its neural patterns go completely chaotic. It's like the concept literally cannot exist in its mind." Alex moved to the second prisoner, a different species that looked like a large insect with crystalline wings. What is your greatest fear?" "Failure to serve the hegemony efficiently," it answered immediately. "What about death? Don't you fear dying?" "Death while serving is acceptable. Disobedience is not." "Have you ever wanted something for yourself? Something that wasn't about serving the hegemony?" The insect creature's antennae twitched rapidly. Its compound eyes seemed to lose focus. "I want ... I do not understand. Wanting is ... I must obey." Rachel's scanner was going crazy. "Alex, its brain is practically shutting down when you ask about personal desires. It's like someone surgically removed the part of its mind that can think independently." The third prisoner was from yet another species, a small humanoid with blue skin and large eyes. Alex decided to try a more direct approach. "Do you want to be free?" The blue creature tilted its head like a confused dog. "Free? I do not know this word." "Free means making your own choices, doing what you want instead of what others tell you to do." But ... but who would tell me what to do if I was free? How would I know what to do?" Alex felt a chill run down his spine. "You would decide for yourself." "That is impossible. the creature said, its voice filled with genuine fear. Someone must tell me. I cannot think without orders. I cannot exist without purpose from above. Rachel grabbed Alex's arm. Look at the brain scans from all three species. They're completely different biologically, but they all show the same neural modifications. Something has been done to their minds. Alex stared at the data streaming across his screens. The evidence was overwhelming. All three alien species showed signs of massive neural modification. Parts of their brains responsible for independent thought, rebellion, and self-determination had been altered or removed entirely. Rachel, this isn't natural evolution. Someone did this to them. Someone deliberately made them incapable of disobedience. But who and why? Alex pulled up historical data from the captured hegemony files. According to their records, the hegemony has existed for over 10,000 years. They've conquered hundreds of species across the galaxy, but look at this. He pointed to a timeline on his screen. Every species they've conquered shows the same pattern. Initial resistance lasting a few months, then complete integration into hegemony society. No rebellions, no independence movements, no attempts to break free. That's impossible, Rachel said. Every intelligent species should have some individuals who resist authority. It's basic psychology. Not if you remove the part of their brains that allows resistance. Alex replied grimly. Meanwhile, on Earth's moon base, Commander Jake Morrison was fighting for his life. Hegemony forces had been attacking the lunar installation for 6 hours, trying to destroy humanity's last major space facility. Sir, we've got enemy troops in sections 7 through 12, reported Ryan Walsh from his tactical station. They're moving methodically like they're following a checklist. Jake watched the enemy advance on his security monitors. The alien soldiers moved in perfect formation, securing each corridor exactly the same way. They're not adapting to our defenses, he observed. Look, they keep using the same approach even though we've set traps. Should we fall back to the intersections? Asked Sam Rodriguez. No, I want to try something, Jake said. He activated the base's communication system. Attention hegemony forces. This is Commander Morrison. I order you to withdraw immediately. The alien soldiers stopped moving. For several seconds, they stood perfectly still in the corridors as if the command had confused their programming. Sir, they've stopped, Ryan reported, amazement in his voice. They're just standing there. That's impossible. Why would they stop just because I gave them an order? Jake tried again. Hegemony soldiers, I command you to return to your ships. Again, the aliens hesitated. Some of them actually took a few steps backward before seeming to remember their mission and resuming their advance. Ryan, are you recording this? Yes, sir. The enemy shows significant delay and confusion when given direct orders by human authority figures. On the ground, similar discoveries were being made by resistance fighters worldwide. General Patricia Hayes had noticed that hegemony occupation forces became paralyzed when faced with unexpected situations. They followed their invasion protocols perfectly, but couldn't adapt when humans did something outside their expectations. Colonel Stone had discovered that alien soldiers would actually obey human commands, if delivered with enough authority. In one famous incident in the ruins of Detroit, Sergeant Ben Carter had ordered a squad of alien troops to lay down their weapons, and 3 of them had actually started to comply before their officers intervened. The reports flooded into Dr. Turner's laboratory from across the globe. Every human military unit that had survived long enough was reporting the same thing. The aliens were programmed to obey authority and couldn't handle unpredictable resistance. Rachel, we need to get this information to every human military commander immediately, Alex said, his hands flying over his keyboard. The hegemony hasn't just conquered other species. They've lobotomized them. They've removed their ability to think independently, to question orders, to resist authority. And that's why they can't understand us, Rachel added, the pieces falling into place. Humans are the first species they've met that still has free will. We're the first species that can say no and mean it. Alex pulled up a galaxy map showing hegemony territory. Hundreds of star systems, thousands of worlds, billions of intelligent beings all living under alien rule. Rachel, do you realize what this means? We're not just fighting for Earth, we're fighting for every enslaved species in the galaxy. We might be their only hope for freedom. But how do we free minds that have been programmed not to want freedom? Alex looked at his prisoners who sat quietly in their cages, waiting for orders that would never come. I don't know yet. But we have to try? Because if we don't, humanity will be the last free species in the universe. Outside the laboratory, the war continued to rage. But now humanity had something more than determination. They had hope. They had discovered their enemy's greatest weakness. The very thing that made the hegemony powerful also made them vulnerable to beings who refused to be controlled. The question was whether humanity could survive long enough to use this knowledge. The final battle for Earth began at dawn over the Rocky Mountains. Overlord Zenth had grown tired of humanity's impossible resistance. For 6 weeks, these primitive beings had refused to surrender despite losing every major engagement. It made no sense, and Zenth needed it to end. His massive command ship descended through the clouds, surrounded by the full might of the hegemony war fleet. Below, hidden in underground bunkers carved into the mountain, the last free humans on Earth prepared for what everyone knew would be their final stand. Colonel Nick Stone stood in the main command bunker, looking at the tactical displays showing thousands of alien ships filling the sky above them. His daughter Emma worked frantically at a communications console nearby, her fingers flying over alien technology that Dr. Turner's team had modified for human use. "Dad, the neural broadcast system is ready," Emma called out. She was only 26 years old, a language specialist who had spent the war studying hegemony communication methods. "If we can get a signal into their network, it should reach every ship in their fleet. Will it work?" Nick asked. Emma's face was pale but determined. "Dr. Turner thinks so. The hegemony uses direct neural links to coordinate their forces. If we can inject the right kind of signal at the right moment, it might overload their conditioning." General Patricia Hayes entered the command center, her uniform torn and dirty from the fighting above. "They're demanding to speak with our leadership. Zenth himself wants to address us directly." "Let him," Nick said grimly. "We've got nothing left to lose." High above the mountain, Overlord Zenth prepared for what he believed would be humanity's final surrender. He had conquered 47 worlds, and every single species had eventually seen reason. Even the most stubborn races never fought past the point where defeat became obvious, but humans were different. They kept fighting even when their cities burned. They kept resisting even when their fleets were destroyed. They kept saying no even when yes was the only logical choice. It frustrated and confused him in ways he couldn't understand. "Open a communication channel to the human leaders," Zenth commanded his subordinates. "Full neural broadcast. I want every human on this planet to hear this." The holographic projector in the mountain bunker activated, and suddenly Overlord Zenth appeared before the human commanders. He was enormous, standing nearly 10 feet tall with 4 powerful arms and armor that gleamed with symbols of his authority. His presence filled the room with intimidating power. "Humans," Zenth said, his voice resonating through the mental link into every human mind on Earth. "I am Overlord Zenth of the Korathian Empire. I speak for the hegemony, rulers of 1,000 worlds, masters of 10,000 species." He spread his 4 arms wide, a gesture designed to show his complete dominance. "Your resistance ends now. Your cities are destroyed, your fleets are scattered. Your armies are broken, you have fought bravely, but you have lost." The human commanders stood in silence, looking up at the towering alien overlord. General Hayes, Colonel Stone, Commander Morrison, who had arrived from the moon base, and dozens of other officers who represented the last of Earth's military leadership. "I offer you one final chance," Zenth continued, his voice growing more commanding. "Surrender now, and your people will be allowed to live as workers in our empire. Your children will be educated in proper obedience. Your species will survive, serving a greater purpose than you could ever achieve alone." Emma Stone watched her father's face as the alien overlord spoke. She could see the weight of humanity's extinction pressing down on him. Around the room, the other commanders looked defeated, exhausted by weeks of hopeless fighting. "But if you continue this pointless resistance," Zenth's voice boomed, "I will order the complete destruction of your world. Every human being will die. Your species will be extinct. Your planet will be empty rock floating in space." The alien overlord leaned forward, his massive form seeming to tower over the humans even through the hologram. "The choice is simple. Submit and live, or resist and die. Every intelligent species in the galaxy has made this choice. Everyone has chosen wisely." He straightened up, confident in his superiority. "I have been patient with your species because you fight well, but my patience ends now. You will surrender. You will acknowledge your defeat. You will accept your place in the hegemony." The silence stretched for long seconds. Emma could hear her heart beating as she watched her father and the other commanders. The fate of humanity hung in the balance. Submit and become slaves, or refuse and face extinction. Zenth's voice became softer but more menacing. "I know you can hear me, human leaders. Your silence tells me you understand the reality of your situation. Speak now. Acknowledge that you have been defeated. Say the words that will save your species." Emma saw her father open his mouth, perhaps to speak the words of surrender that would save humanity but condemn them to eternal slavery. Around the room, other commanders looked ready to give up the fight that had cost so many lives, but Emma thought about Dr. Turner's discoveries. She thought about the billions of enslaved beings across the galaxy who had lost their ability to choose freedom. She thought about alien soldiers who couldn't even understand the concept of saying no to authority. Most of all, she thought about what made humans different from every other species the hegemony had conquered. Humans could still choose. Humans could still resist. Humans could still say no. "Humans," Zenth commanded, his voice now carrying the full weight of his authority and the power of 10,000 years of galactic domination. "You will submit. Acknowledge your defeat and accept your place in the hegemony. Submit now." The word hung in the air like thunder. Submit. The same word that had broken the will of countless species across the galaxy. The word that meant giving up everything that made life worth living in exchange for simple survival. Emma Stone stepped forward. She was young, just a language specialist, not a general or a president or an admiral. But she was human, and that meant she had something that no other species in the galaxy possessed anymore. She looked directly at the towering alien overlord, meeting his gaze without fear. Her voice was quiet but clear, carrying through the neural broadcast network to every ship in the hegemony fleet. No. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Zenth's neural implants, designed to process submission and obedience, encountered something they had never experienced before. Absolute refusal. Complete rejection. A response that should have been impossible. The alien overlord staggered backward, his forearms clutching his head as his conditioning tried to process what he had heard. Across the hegemony fleet, similar reactions rippled through the command structure as the single word propagated through their neural network. For the first time in 10,000 years, someone had said no to the hegemony and meant it completely. The word that every other species had forgotten, the concept that had been surgically removed from a million worlds, had finally been spoken with the full force of human defiance behind it. And in that moment, everything changed. Emma Stone's single word traveled through the hegemony's neural network like lightning through water. The word no spread from ship to ship, mind to mind, reaching every corner of their fleet in seconds. And everywhere it touched, it caused chaos. Overlord Zenth collapsed to his knees on his command bridge, his forearms pressed against his head as his neural implants overloaded. The concept of absolute refusal was like poison to his conditioned mind. Around him, his officers stumbled and fell as their own implants tried to process something that should not exist. "Impossible," Zenth gasped, his voice filled with pain and confusion. "No species refuses, no species says no. It cannot be," but it was happening. On every hegemony ship above Earth, the command structure was falling apart. Officers who had never questioned an order in their lives suddenly found themselves unable to think clearly. The neural pathways that controlled their obedience were burning out, overwhelmed by a concept they were never designed to handle. In the mountain bunker, Emma watched through the holographic display as the alien fleet began to drift out of formation. Ships that had moved with perfect coordination now moved randomly, their crews too confused to maintain their positions. "Dad, it's working," she whispered. "Their whole system is breaking down." Colonel Stone activated his communications array. "All Earth forces, this is Stone. The enemy fleet is in disarray. Begin counterattack operations immediately." Captain Jake Morrison, still commanding the defense station Valor, watched in amazement as hegemony ships began firing on each other by mistake. Their perfect tactical coordination had disappeared, replaced by chaos and confusion. "All fighters, launch now," Jake ordered. "Hit them while they're scattered." Lieutenant Commander Kate Phillips led her surviving pilots against the alien fleet. Where before they had faced impossible odds against perfectly coordinated enemies, now they found confused ships that couldn't work together to defend themselves. But the real miracle was happening far beyond Earth's solar system, on the mining world of Zelania Prime. Thousands of enslaved aliens had been working in the deep tunnels when Emma's "no" reached them through the hegemony's communication network. For the first time in their lives, they heard a word that their minds had been programmed to forget. A Zelanian miner named Korth stopped his drilling machine and looked around in confusion. Something felt different in his mind, like a wall had suddenly developed a crack. He had always worked because he had to work. The hegemony commanded it, so he obeyed, but now, for reasons he couldn't understand, a small voice in his head whispered a question: "What if I don't want to work?" The thought should have been impossible, but there it was. Korth set down his tools and walked away from his workstation. When his overseer ordered him back to work, Korth looked at the alien guard and said something he had never said before. "No." The effect spread like wildfire through the mining complex. Other Zelanian workers heard Korth's defiance and felt the same crack forming in their own minds. They began to remember what choice felt like. They began to remember that they were individuals, not just tools of the hegemony. On the agricultural world of Praxis, similar awakenings were happening. Farm workers who had tended hegemony crops for generations suddenly wondered why they were giving their food to alien masters while their own children went hungry. A Praxian farmer named Teln looked at the transport ship that had come to collect his harvest and made a decision that would have been unthinkable hours before. "This food belongs to my people," he told the hegemony collector. "You cannot have it." The collector, a small gray alien with neural implants, stared at Teln in confusion. His programming had no response for direct refusal from a subject species. After several seconds of mental processing errors, the collector's implants overloaded, and he collapsed. Word of the resistance spread from world to world through the hegemony's own communication network. The simple concept of saying no, of refusing to obey, infected enslaved populations across the galaxy, like a virus spreading through a computer system. Dr. Alex Turner monitored these developments from his laboratory on Earth, watching in amazement as his scanners picked up rebellion signals from hundreds of star systems. "Rachel, look at this. It's happening everywhere at once. Every enslaved species in hegemony space is starting to resist." "How is that possible?" Rachel asked, staring at the data streaming across their screens. Emma's refusal created a cascade. "Failure in their neural control system," Alex explained excitedly. The hegemony used the same basic programming on every species they conquered. When that programming encountered something it couldn't process, it started breaking down. But how are the enslaved species learning to resist? Their minds were modified to prevent independent thought. Alex pointed to his brain scan data. The modifications didn't remove the capacity for free will. They just suppressed it. Emma's no acted like a key, unlocking mental barriers that have been in place for thousands of years. On Earth, the hegemony fleet was in full retreat. Ships that had seemed invincible just hours before now fled toward deep space, their crews too mentally damaged to continue fighting. Overlord Zenth had been taken to his medical bay, his mind shattered by exposure to genuine defiance, but the real victory was happening across the galaxy. World after world was declaring independence from hegemony rule. Species that had been enslaved for millennia were rediscovering their capacity for choice and self-determination. 6 months later, Emma Stone stood before the first assembly of the Free Worlds Coalition. Representatives from over 200 liberated species filled the great hall that had been built in orbit around Earth. Some were still undergoing treatment to reverse their neural conditioning, but all had one thing in common: they had remembered how to say no. "My fellow beings," Emma began, her voice carried by translators to every species present. 6 months ago, humanity was facing extinction. We were the last free species in a galaxy ruled by fear and control. She looked out at the assembled representatives, seeing creatures of every shape and size imaginable. Some had scales, others had fur. Some had wings, others moved on dozens of legs. But all of them had the same look in their eyes, the light of freedom. "Today we gather not as masters and servants, but as equals. We have learned that true strength comes not from forcing others to obey, but from choosing to work together freely." A Zelanian delegate raised one of his 6 arms. "Speaker Stone, what of the hegemony survivors? Many of their species are still too damaged by their conditioning to care for themselves." Emma nodded. "We will help them heal, just as Dr. Turner and his team helped us understand what had been done to them. No intelligent being should be condemned to live without choice." The assembly voted unanimously to establish medical and rehabilitation centers throughout former hegemony space. The goal was not revenge, but healing. Even the species that had once been their oppressors deserved the chance to discover what freedom meant. As the session ended, Emma walked to the great window overlooking Earth. The planet showed signs of healing from the war. Cities were being rebuilt, forests replanted, oceans cleaned. Humanity had survived their greatest test and discovered their greatest gift. They had learned that sometimes the most powerful word in any language was the simplest one. A word that every free being had the right to speak. A word that could break chains, topple empires, and light the spark of freedom across the stars. The word was no, and it had changed the galaxy forever.